Morning students, we will continue with the next point under duties of the buyer to pay for excess. Suppose if the buyer accepts excess supply, then he has to pay for it at the contract rate. See like prescribed limits ಗಿಂತ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಡೆಲಿವರಿ ತಗೊಂಡಾಗ ನೀವು ಎಕ್ಸಸ್ ಅಮೌಂಟ್ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನು ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ ಕಾಂಟ್ ಗಿವ್ ಯು ಅಟ್ ಲಾಸಸ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಬಿನ್ ಡಿಫೈನ್ಡ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ 39. Next you have to accept delivery to carrier. So what is this carrier? Carrier is a person or the company who legally help you in the transportation of the goods. Who legally transfer the goods, we call it as carrier. Understood? So whenever there is a contract, so when the carrier arises towards the buyer, it is a duty of the buyer to accept the carrier. So carrier ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟ ಮೇಲೆ ಟ್ರಾನ್ಸ್ಪೋರ್ಟೇಷನ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಆದಮೇಲೆ ರಿಜೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಯು ಕಾಲ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಟು ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ದಿ ಡೆಲಿವರಿ ಟು carrier ಅಂಡರ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನ್ 39. Next you have to be liable for neglecting or refusing delivery. Suppose seller is already willing to deliver the goods on the request of the buyer. Now it is a duty of the buyer to take the delivery of such goods. Understood? So if the buyer fails to take the delivery of the such goods, at that time he is liable to pay for the seller. ಸೊ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನೆಗ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ರೆಫ್ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಆ ರೀತಿ ಮಾಡಬಾರ್ದು. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ದಿಸ್ ದ ಬಯರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು pay the reasonable charges for the seller in order not accepting the delivery of the goods over here. Understood? So idralli it will not affect the rights of the seller because the buyer has neglected or refused the delivery of the goods. Hagagi there is no part of the seller for the repudiation of the contract. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಕನ್ಸಿಡ್ರೇಷನ್ಗೆ ಬರಲ್ಲ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಬೈಯರ್ ಇಂಟೆನ್ಷನಲಿ ಬೇಕಂತ ನೆಗ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಅ ಲಯಬಿಲಿಟಿ ಆಫ್ ದಿ buyer to pay the damages for the seller. Understood? So he is liable. This is also one of the duty of the buyer over here. So this is defined under section 44. Next you have to pay the price in advance. So according to section 55 to contract, under the contract of the sale, the price is payable on the day certain. Say for example, if you have entered a particular date in the contract, whether it is a advance payment or whether it is a ಡ್ಯೂ ಡೇಟ್ ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್, ವಾಟ್ ಎವರ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್. ಸೊ ಒಂದು ಪೇಮೆಂಟ್ ಡೇಟ್ನ ನೀವು ಪ್ರಿಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ನೀವು ಪೇಮೆಂಟಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾಡಲೇಬೇಕು. ಇರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟಿವ್ ಆಫ್ ಡೆಲಿವರಿ ದ ಬಯರ್ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಪೇ ದ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಇನ್ ಅಡ್ವಾನ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ನೀವು ಕಾಂಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ಯಾವ ರೀತಿ ಎಂಟ್ರ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತೀರೋ ಸೊ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಸೊ ಡೇಟಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಪೇ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ, ನೀವು ಗೂಡ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡಿ ಅಂದಾಗ ಈ ಡೆಫಿನೆಟ್ಲಿ ಈ ಹ್ಯಾಸ್ ಟು ಪೇ ಫಾರ್ ಇಟ್. ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟುಡ್? ಅದರ್ವೈಸ್ ದ ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಹ್ಯಾವಿಂಗ್ ದ ರೈಟ್ಸ್ ಟು ಸೂ ಫಾರ್ ದ ಪ್ರೈಸ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದಿ ಬಯರ್. Next you have to pay increased tax. Suppose suddenly if the government increases the tax on the goods, the buyer has to pay that excess tax under section 64A. Next, to accept unconditional appropriation. What is this unconditional appropriation? It means the act, it is an act where seller have already fulfilled all his activities. So contract ಅಲ್ಲಿ terms and conditions ಏನಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅದನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಫುಲ್ಫಿಲ್ ಮಾಡಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿರ್ತಾನೆ. So this you call it as unconditional appropriation. Understood? What and all the duties the seller has to perform, he will perform and he will try to clear the contract. So whenever there is an assent of a seller, what is this assent? It is a formal agreement or a legal agreement that I have cleared all the conditions from my side. The buyer has to accept it. Understood? ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಸೆಲ್ಲರ್ he has done his part of activity, he has fulfilled all his conditions as well as the activities in order to fulfill a contract. ಸೊ ಇವಾಗ ಬೈಯರ್ ಅದನ್ನು ನೆಗ್ಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡೋಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ he has to accept the unconditional appropriation under section 23. So these are the duties of the buyer. You have only 11 points, very simple and easy points as well. So we have left out with one or two concepts so that we can wind up a chapter. Copy down. If you have any doubts you can ask me guys. Be little serious regarding your examination. Have a nice day.